Jerry, I think you muted yourself too. Are you saying?
I'm just being quiet. I'm just being quiet for a second. I want to say good afternoon to a lot of us. Good morning to some of us, especially to Pro Football Hall of Famer Mike Haynes, who's out in San Diego. So it is only 9 o'clock their time out there. But I want to welcome everyone to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. My name is Jerry Shockey. I oversee all the youth and educational programs here, and we're excited to connect you guys in for this initial launch of this new segment of our highly popular Heart of a Hall of Famer series. And it's our career and leadership series. At least that's the name for now, until we get feedback from the rest of you on what we think we should title it. But just so you guys know, over the past 4 years, when we've done this Heart of the Hall of Fame, we've connected on the K-12 level. We've connected probably 60-plus guys out to almost 40,000 students across the country through this series to teach them about the character qualities it takes to get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and how these character qualities aren't just character qualities being great football players, but their character qualities to being Hall of Famers in everyday life. And most certainly we'll get into some of those as well today here. But this one, obviously, today we want to focus in on career prep and advice for getting careers and being the best you can be in your given career that you're going to choose into. As some of you are already set in your careers and know your career path to an extent, and some of you may not. So we'd like to get into that and share a little bit about Mike Haynes' experiences and advice that he has for you guys, both from a career perspective as well as a career leadership perspective as well. But I would like to thank a number of folks that helped make this possible, and first and foremost, our partners at Extreme Networks. I know Linda's tuned in. I see my friend Gene Mickelson's on camera as well from the Minneapolis area. Thank you, Gene, for being in here as well. We have to thank San Diego Community College District. They've hosted Dermonti Dawson. They've hosted Mike Haynes a couple times now, James Lofton. For some reason, we got a whole bunch of guys that live out in San Diego. I haven't figured that one out yet, but Caesar and now Matthew, the new gentleman to the team there at San Diego Community College District in San Diego, thank you for your support on this program. It doesn't happen without you. And then thanks to all the college and universities across the country that are tuning in, the faculty, staff, as well as the students that are tuned in from some of these colleges. Thank you for taking the time here today to participate in this program and giving your valuable feedback or invaluable feedback to this program. I would for a second like to recognize those schools that are tuned in. And we have the schools that are tuned in here today. I think everyone's pretty aware of them, but we'll just rehash them again. Minnesota State University in Mankato, Minnesota. The University of Mount Union in Alliance, Ohio. Baldwin-Wallace University in Brio, Ohio. And Malone University in Canton, Ohio. And unfortunately, Kent State University had to back out the last second because of some technical difficulties. So hopefully they'll be able to tune in the future. But what I'd like to do is get into the introduction of our featured speaker here today, and that's Pro Football Hall of Famer Mike Haynes. And Mr. Haynes' professional football career began when he was the 5th player selected in the 1976 draft. He was a first-round draft choice of the New England Patriots. Mr. Haynes was voted as the NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year, so immediately found success in the NFL. He was selected by his peers to represent the AFC in 9 Pro Bowls during his 14-year NFL career with the Patriots and Los Angeles Raiders, and in a Super Bowl ring as a member of the 1983 Raiders. Haynes is widely recognized as one of the NFL's greatest defensive backs. He was inducted into the Patriots Hall of Fame in 1994. He was named to the NFL's 75th anniversary all-time team in 1995. And as we like to argue here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, is that the highest individual honor that any player can receive is being elected into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio, in which he was done so in 1997. Another cool stat about him is that not too long ago, NFL Network did a top 10 quarterback or cornerback duos, and Haynes and Hayes, Lester Hayes and Mike Haynes were voted the #1 duo, and I don't know if anyone can dispute that because they were absolutely remarkable during their time. During his playing career, Haynes recognized the need to prepare for life after football and begin to establish the groundwork for his career off the field. He spent a distinguished 7 years at Callaway Golf, a global leader in the development and manufacture of golf equipment, with 6 years as a global licensing manager prior to being promoted to vice president of recreational golf development. He returned to the NFL in 2002, where he led the player development department, which created and managed programs to help players transition into and out of the NFL. And we know that this department gets a lot of recognition, I guess, so to speak, today because of whether it's for the things that players are doing on and off the field, but it's a very important part, and Mike Haynes helped launch that for the National Football League during his time. Haynes has also held the position of special advisor to the commissioner of the NFL, responsible for providing counsel on player issues. He is now the president and founder of Mike Haynes and Associates, a consulting company with more than 35 years of experience that takes a holistic approach to problem solving. Mike Haynes and Associates works with clients to demonstrate a commitment to a winning culture, seeks a competitive edge, and value making a difference in our shared community. And boy, that sounds like an NFL player as well, or an NFL team. So I would imagine that that's structured very similarly for that reason. Giving back to the community plays a large part, and I know this firsthand because anytime I call Mr. Haynes to do something, he's always the first to respond. Yeah, I'm in. Just let me know. He plays a large role in Haynes' philosophy. He is a passionate advocate for issues that oftentimes break barriers and bring about meaningful improvements and change. He has received numerous honors for following his desire to make a positive contribution in the world. Recently, Haynes received the Gilda Radner Courage Award from the Roswell Park Alliance Foundation for his willingness to use his personal experience with prostate cancer, and he can share a little bit about that as well today, to encourage men to learn about prostate health. More recently, he was inducted into the John McClendon Minority Athletic Administrators Hall of Fame, which is founded by the National Association of College Directors of Athletics to recognize outstanding accomplishments in sports administration. So the accolades on and off the field stack up with Mr. Haynes. Haynes was honored for his personal decorum while becoming a role model to others and rising to the highest level of excellence in his chosen career. And before I ask Mr. Haynes to share his opening remarks, what I want to do is share with you guys a quick video.
Defensive back Mike Haynes played the game of football with unmeasurable quickness and precision. Opponents stood almost no chance against Haynes' suffocating one-on-one coverage. Mike Haynes didn't play the game with a lot of swagger. He just let his ability speak for itself.
Okay, and if all the schools for a second want to join me and unmute their microphones for a second and join me in giving a warm round of applause to Pro Football Hall of Famer, Mr. Mike Haynes.
Thank you, Jerry, for a great introduction. Actually, can you send me a copy of that? That was pretty impressive. That guy was awesome. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm glad to be here with you, and I'm hoping that we'll use this time wisely. This is the first time that we've done this with college students or teachers, and I want to make sure that everybody they get out of it what they actually came to hear. And so hopefully when we open up to questions and answers that you'll be able to get your questions answered. I don't know if I'm going to be able to address it in the few minutes that I'm going to talk. Jerry's asked me to tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up in Los Angeles, California, and I think I was one of the kids, a type of kid that believe that the world is supposed to be good and people are supposed to be good and we're all supposed to go to heaven when we die and stuff like that. I was really gifted at sports as a young kid, like probably all Hall of Famers are. I can't imagine any of them not being gifted in some sport. It was the thing that I was probably most passionate about. I'd get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and go throw my baseball against the wall and catch it. Baseball was my number one love. I was a Dodger fan and a Laker fan, but mainly baseball, which I think at the time was the number one sport in America. I always dreamed of being in a Dodger uniform. And so as a young kid, my dad coached Little League Baseball, took my brother and me to games, and we were excelling in baseball. My dad loved baseball so much that he would actually take us out of school and take us to the park and hit grounders to me, and I would throw the ball to my brother who played first base. little did I know that sports was going to play a big role in my life. And I wish my parents had been able to figure out how they could have used my love for sports to make me a better student. Growing up in Los Angeles and going to high school, to a school that really was more academic, more interested in academics than it was in sports, turned out to be a blessing. But at the time, I thought it was horrible that was the situation for me. I actually, in my grew up in the civil rights era and ended up getting kicked off the team for a few days because of a discussion I had with the coach, because I was such not really a rebel. I think I really was a leader even back then. I used to wear this little hat, and so we were taking our team picture. I had this hat on, and the coach happened to turn around and see me in the hat. He said, "Haynes, what are you doing with that hat on?" I said, I like the hat. He goes, "Why do you guys wear those hats anyway?" And I said, "What do you mean, you guys, coach? What do you mean?" I'm just one of the guys, so I went off on this tirade, and he got upset with me and kicked me off the team. I learned a lot from, those situations. At the time, of course, I didn't, but looking back on my life, I realized how a lot of those situations played a role in my life. I was lucky playing football. I was selected to play in an all-star game, not because I was a great high school athlete like a lot of people think I probably was. In this all-star game, the coach got to select 2 players from our team, and for some reason, even though I was this rebel, he selected me to play in the all-star game. In that game, I realized that I wasn't going to be able to play wide receiver, the position that I had wanted to play. And I asked the coach 3 days before the game if I could play the right corner position. And so he put me over there in the practice, and I beat out a kid who had been there for 2 weeks playing that position. I beat him out before the game. And so I started that game at the right corner. And it's odd, but that's the position I'm in the Hall of Fame for, the exact same position. And so in that all-star game, I was finally getting recruited by top colleges, and I selected Arizona State. And I'm not going to bore you with all the details of how all that stuff went. Just know that I went and I started at Arizona State as a freshman. And so as a freshman, the coaches were asking me to step up and be more of a leader, and I didn't understand what the heck that meant. How do you step up and be a leader if you're 18 years old, 19 years old? How do you tell somebody who has 2 kids? How do you lead him? One of the seniors who drives, and you're walking every place and everybody else is driving. And so what I did was just worked harder. I ran harder. I tried not to miss a workout. I didn't really know exactly what he meant by being a leader. And so I was kind of left to think of what that meant on my own. But by the time I was a senior, I was voted the team captain. And then I think that's when I really started to understand what a leader was. Before, I didn't really care a whole lot about anything else except winning and having a good time. But when I was the captain, then I realized that we had a young team, and if we were going to have any success at all, these guys need to work a little harder. They need to understand. They need to have a better relationship with their coaches. And so I would start to make those kinds of things happen, by talking with the players. If a guy came late, I'd walk over and say, "Man, why are you late to practice today, man?" Well, I had something to do. Well, I said, well, you can't be late, man. If you're late, Coach Cush is going to be upset with you. He's going to ride you all week. So I started helping the guys. And I think that is when I started to realize that it wasn't about me. It was about the team and every single person on the team, not just the guys who start, if we were going to have a great season. And so that year we went undefeated while I was the team captain, along with another guy named Jim Heilig, who grew up in Pittsburgh area, which is a lot like Ohio. And football was the number one thing to him. And it would meant the world to him. It really didn't mean the world to me. And my parents weren't big football fans. They, like I said earlier, they were baseball fans. And so my college experience ended, as Jerry said, with me getting drafted in the first round. I played in 3 Fiesta Bowls in college. As I said, my senior year, we were undefeated and played with a lot of great players. So I think the only reason I kind of bring this up is because I think my background pretty much had a lot to do with my leadership style, and my own experiences had a lot to do with my leadership style. Going into the NFL, again, I was asked to lead, and I was a rookie. And now I'm 22, 23 years old, and I'm playing with guys who are in their 30s. How does a 23-year-old guy lead a guy who's in his 30s, has 3 kids, and and that's in college? Maybe there's a couple of guys that were married, and a couple of guys had kids. Then the pros, there were tons of them. How do you do that? Well, because of the experience I had my senior year, I did try and do it a little bit differently. I did know that it was important for me to hang out with these guys, even though I wasn't married and didn't have any kids. I hung out with them a little bit, got to know them, talked to them about different things. And then as the season started to go along, I realized how I might be different for them, or how I might be able to help them be better. They helped me too, don't get me wrong. I led our team in mental mistakes as a rookie. And I probably had 12 mental mistakes for a season. That's not a lot of mental mistakes. But they had 0 because they were veterans and the Patriots, and I think the Patriots are still the same way today. Every single player on that team knows every single thing in that playbook. And I was fortunate enough to play on 2 teams, the Raiders and the Patriots. The Raiders, they were not the same kind of a student when it came to the game, playing the game. They're great athletes, but for me as a Raider, as a cornerback, all I had to do was cover the guy in front of me. That's it. When I was on the Patriots, if we could bring a guy in during the middle of the week, sign him on Thursday, and every single player in that defensive huddle could tell that guy what he was supposed to do and what the stunt was, and what was likely the coach was likely to call next play, or what to do in these what-if situations. It's just kind of a different environment altogether. All of that, all of those experiences really helped me become who I am today. And the coaches that I coached with, the players that I played with, the wives of the players, the conversations I have so many funny stories of leadership. We went to a hospital, took a guy out of the hospital. I'll just tell this one. He was going to have surgery. And the team back in those days, they wanted to keep players on the team, so they would put them on injured reserve. So they would tell guys, hey, when we go down during this next game, when we play these guys, when you tackle that guy, I want you to grab your back and lay on the field, and we'll come on there and we'll get you, and then we'll put you on injured reserve. And that's the way you get a lot of kids to make the team and have more guys than the limit says you could have. So we were doing things like that. Well, there was one kid from University of Montana. He was a really fast offensive lineman, ran about a 4.65. He was 285 pounds. They asked him to do it. And so he grabbed his leg, grabbed his knee. And so his wife came and got me when he was in the hospital. He said, hey, they're going to operate on my husband. I think he should get another opinion. And I said, why are they going to operate? She said she didn't know. So I got on the phone, called a friend of mine and said, hey, I need to get a couple of doctors that I can bring this player to get another opinion. Can you help me out? And the guy said, yeah, bring him up to me, and we'll go over to Mass General. So I called this guy. I go to Mass General. We talked to probably the #1 orthopedic doctor in America, a guy named Ricardo Bell at the time. He's now passed away. And I took this guy out of the hospital that he was in, took him to Mass General, met with Ricardo Bell. They moved his leg all around and said, we don't think you need to have surgery. Well, what I didn't know is that the hospital where he was before, they had already given him medication. So when the doctor, Ricardo Bell, was moving his leg around, the reason he was feeling no pain is because he was all drugged up. That's why he was feeling no pain. And so we left the hospital feeling really good that he wasn't going to have surgery. When I got home, my phone was ringing off the wall. The coach was trying to reach me. They said they'd had an APB out for my arrest because I had taken a kid out of the hospital. And we didn't get any okays. We just told him to get dressed. We just walked right down the hallway. No one said anything. So they knew where he was. That was me doing what I thought I needed to do to help my team and to be a leader, and to try and help this guy's wife and help him feel better about his NFL experience. And I've been doing crazy things like that for my whole life. And I continue to do them now. I had a great job at the NFL helping players transition into the NFL and prepare for transition out of the NFL. And you might imagine the types of things that I was exposed to. I was also responsible for the player conduct. So when you would see a player have behavior like, say, the Ray Rice situation, that would have hit my blotter. That would have been on my desk. That would have been a problem that I would have had to dealt with. We have coaches or players who come out and say that they're gay and things. Those are the kinds of issues I had to deal with off the field conduct, not on the field conduct. And I learned an awful lot about leadership, dealing with problems, how to deal with problems, and how to anticipate problems before they happen from working at the NFL. Actually, maybe you can say because you're a leader on a team, you're anticipating them anyway. You know a lot about the background of the players. You have a good idea of some of the challenges that they're faced with because you've been in their shoes. You were a rookie once. You just got married, or you were in love, or you had 3 or 4 girlfriends at one time. Or one of your friends did. So all these problems, all these things that I experienced in my life, I got a chance to use them when I was in that role. And before we got started here, I was introduced to some of the folks here who have gone through some special training. Well, I had to go through a lot of special training to be able to deal with a lot of the problems that the players had to deal with. But I enjoyed that. I enjoyed dealing with these problems, and I enjoyed trying to understand where they came from and how do we resolve them. And for the most part, all the problems that we had are they're social problems. They're problems that not only football players have, everybody has. And so I enjoyed them because I felt like a lot of times these things are being brushed under the rug. People are just dealing with them and not really dealing with them. And so when they happen in the NFL, all of a sudden you're behind the spotlight and everybody is looking at your situation and wanting to know how you're going to deal with it. I love those. I loved being in those situations. So because I felt like it was a great opportunity to really bring about change and really to address it right. Like ethical leadership. There's a lot of good leaders out there, but are all of them ethical? Do you ever think about it? I mean, I have 6 kids, and I have to think about it all the time when I'm having conversations with my kids. You've heard this old saying about, do as I as I say, not as I do. Well, I think a lot of parents would think that's okay. That's the way they were raised. But really, Albert Bandura would say, I get a chance to throw that in, Albert Bandura, we learn by what we see from the things that we see in the environment. So if I see my coaches saying, I want you to tear that guy's head off, all right? And then later you hear him on an interview say, well, we're just playing football and I don't know what you're talking about, and you're a young kid and you're looking at that. Now I realize the impact of what's going on. Before, I don't think I really did. And when I got that job at the NFL and I realized that now I was in a position where I can really help bring about change. And to do it, I need to make sure that people understand that their behavior is the thing that is driving the bus. So that you might want to tell all these players to behave a certain way and expect it to happen. But if you're not doing it and they're not seeing other people doing it, then it's not happening. It's going to be a pipe dream. So from that job at the NFL, I ended up leaving the NFL when I found out that I had prostate cancer. I was diagnosed with prostate cancer, and I came to San Diego actually to deal with my prostate cancer. My wife and I decided to have a radical prostatectomy, which meant I was going to have my prostate removed, and that whole experience going through that whole experience was one. I don't really want to spend time talking about it, but it brought my family closer together, brought me closer together with the medical community, you might say, that deals with prostate cancer. And they asked me to be the spokesperson for it. And I said yes, because this is something that I can do, I can be passionate about, and I can help men become more aware of the symptoms dealing with prostate cancer. The whole idea now is last month in October, you saw guys wearing pink on their uniforms, and that was for breast cancer awareness. Well, that whole campaign started really with us. We went to the NFL and asked for the guys to wear blue, which was the color for prostate cancer. And we wanted people to be asking what's with the blue and try to help with the awareness. But when the teams asked all 32 teams to consider it, they realized for the very first time that all 31 of the 32 teams was doing something for breast cancer, and only 6 were doing something for prostate cancer. Well, when you add that, their goal was to try and increase their audience and become a dominant sport. They felt like one way to grow their sport was to attract women into the sport. Well, that meant the prostate cancer and the blue was going to have to take a back seat to the pink and the breast cancer, because they wanted to try and get more women involved. And the best way to get them involved, or not the best way, but a way to get them involved, was to support the breast cancer awareness and to partner with a lot of breast cancer organizations. So football is a business, and it is a great business to be in. Like all sports, they are all businesses. And I've had an awful lot of experiences that I'd love to share with you folks during this question and answer period. But one of the things that I want to say, because I know a lot of students are listening, is the light finally went off for me when I was at the NFL with regard to opportunities for athletes. When I first took that job, in my first week of work there, my boss said, it's really horrible that guys go through such a depression when they have to give up playing the game. And I went through this little bit of a depression, so I kind of understood it. And I said, why is that guys go through the depression? He said, because they can't play anymore. And I thought about it, and I said, but you don't have to give up the sport. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, well, there's so many different things you can do in the sport. Now, granted, I'd been out of the sport now for 10, 12 years when I had this aha moment. But I said, you could be a lawyer, a doctor, a psychologist. You could specialize in orthopedics. You can specialize in arthritis. You can specialize all these different things. You can train athletes. You can coach. You can be a broadcaster. You can be a producer. You could build stadiums. You could sell furniture, to stadiums. You could do marketing. There's probably 80 different things that you can do. But most guys, when they play the sport, they think there's 2 things they can do. And that's be a coach or a broadcaster. And that's it. But so I've been really promoting the last 4 or 5 years this whole idea of there's so many different opportunities in sport that guys need, guys and ladies as well, need to become more aware of them, because I don't think that they're really thinking it through. I talk to young people all the time. A girl, I went to Arizona State, they were softball champions in 2 of her 4 years. And I said, so what are you going to do now? Your career is over with ASU. She says, I don't really know. I said, well, what were you doing for 4 years? I was playing softball. I said, well, can't you pursue a career in softball? And so she didn't really know. And I think that it's a huge world out there. And if you think about, sports being global, football is like the number 10 sport. It's, 400 and something million spectators, where soccer is number 1, cricket and field hockey, they're way up there, 1, 2, and 3, But my point is that the things that I learned in football, I can transition those skills into several other sports, believe it or not. Hockey, never even been, I've been to one hockey game. But I can use a lot of the same skills that I learned in football in all of these different sports, and it's global. And it's about time that the sports world woke up and the schools woke up and started using sports to teach people. I think that I would have been a much better math major. I was a finance major in school. I wasn't really bad at math, but I would have been much, much better at math if when those teachers were teaching me geometry and things like that, if they were use sports as an analogy. Like, let's build a football stadium and let's build a locker. What's it going to be like? If anybody ever been to a locker room when it's halftime and you go in there and now the coach is going to talk, where do people sit? I can tell you the locker rooms that I've been in, most people haven't thought that through. It sure isn't a comfortable situation. Anyway, there's just so many different opportunities in the sports world for athletes and people who love sports. And you don't necessarily have to be the great athlete, but you can just love sports. There's plenty of opportunity there. So that's a little bit about me. And trust me, there's a lot more that I'm leaving out. I'm 61 years old now, and using my life experiences to try and make a difference in other people's lives. As I said, I'm the spokesperson for prostate cancer. I'm also my 10-year-old son's football coach. The way I became a coach is because of the concern about concussions. I never played youth football. I started playing football in the 10th grade, so I wanted to make sure that my son didn't have some, coach screaming at his ear about, not being a good tackler and having him run into walls or bigger players or whatever. So that got me into coaching, and I realized that our sport has a lot to learn when it comes to teaching young people how to play our sport and have an appreciation for our sport. And I would imagine that's true in other sports, but in a contact sport like football, I think it merits really having a lot of education with regard to concussions and other types of injuries and symptoms, and even dealing with people, dealing with parents. I've been in situations where the parents are telling me to put their son back in. I said, I know. I said, look, he looks fine, but he told me he had a headache, so I'm not putting him in as long as he has a headache. And so we're going to have to get him approved, by some medical person before he's going to be able to even come back to our next practice. Because I played football and I really see how concussions have played a force in guys' lives later. Like I said, I'm 60, but I never started playing football until I was in the 10th grade. And I didn't learn how to tackle until I was in college. So I never was this big brute of a tackler running in there hitting people super hard. And then I played cornerback. And so a great game for me, I'm not making 10 or 12 tackles. I'm making a few tackles, and they're usually on wide receivers who are jumping in the air trying to catch passes. So I'm not going to get a lot of concussions, but I've seen what they can do to guys. And America now has the last 10 years has seen some of the dangers. And so I'm very sensitive to the sport, my sport in particular. I'd love to see it continue. If I didn't think that the sport was safe, you can believe I wouldn't have my son. I have two sons that are playing football right now. So that's it. I mean, I think I touched on the things that you might have an interest in. I hope I did. And if I didn't, hopefully your questions will steer me in the right direction.
Well, that's right, Mike. So that's what we're going to go to now is questions from all the schools. We're just going to go from one question from each school and rotate as many times. We'll start with Minnesota State, University of Mount Union, Baldwin Wallace, and Malone, and work in that order. So we will start with Minnesota State, University of Mankato. If students have a question, go ahead and unmute and ask that question.
Okay, so I want to start with one for you, Mike. You talked about Bandura, and it sounds like for you, you've really focused on the need to have significant people in your life to guide you. And I'm wondering, who did you listen to and who guided you in your career path?
I think in a lot of ways I was kind of blessed. I really have to say that my college coaches probably helped me more than anybody else. I think for them, it was important that I stay eligible. And so they helped me try to decide what I should major in, and then when I got out of that and into pro football, I was a finance major. And the reason I was a finance major is because I was good at numbers. I couldn't believe that I could do something outside of football that came natural. And so I was very blessed. When I was with the Patriots, a company called State Street Research and Management, the CEO came in and did a presentation to our team. And afterwards, I walked up and introduced myself to him and asked if I could work at his company in the off season. I just want to see if I would enjoy doing what he does, because it looked like I would. It was using, buying stocks and bonds and things like that and helping people. And it looked like a lot of fun. So I became good friends. His name was George Bennett. I became good friends with him, and I took him up on that. So in the off season, for 4 years, I went there and I worked and learned a lot about that business, and I was good at it. So it was a lot of fun. As you might guess, he went to Harvard, and that company managed the Harvard Endowment Fund. And so I met a lot of super successful people because of that job that I was in, that I could call and ask any question, and I didn't have any problem doing that. So I did that. Now, when I joined the Raiders, I now was back home. And so, believe it or not, people that I grew up with, now I was probably close to 30, and I just started asking about other people. What are you guys doing? And seeing what they were doing, and realized that they needed mentors. So I started plugging them up with some of the people that I met when I was on the Patriots. I don't know. I used to look at people. I used to look at people, and most of them have let me down. Like I said, I grew up in the civil rights era, and so a lot of the guys that I said, man, I want to be like him. He was such a great leader. He let me down later. Or like that athlete, he was so great. Oh wow, he's doing commercials. He's doing movies. He let me down too. All right. So I stopped looking at people and started just looking at characteristics and things that I really was drawn to, that was the reason I liked this guy, because he had high ethics or something. I started looking at things like that, and it kind of has shaped me into the person I am. I think I have a lot of mentors. I have kids that are mentors, believe it or not, and that I understand some of the challenges that they've been through, and I just admire how they're dealing with their lives right now, or the things they're going through. And so I stopped looking at people, and I'll call anybody. Like I said earlier, I called Albert Bandura. Most people would not do that. I was at a place, and this guy who was doing this speech kept using his name. He goes, and so Albert Bandura this and Albert Bandura that. I'm going, man, Albert Bandura, I should try to reach that guy. And so I left. I picked up the phone. No, I Googled it. And then I picked up the phone and called him. And I said, hey, my name's Mike Haynes. I'm a former NFL player. I work at the National Football League. I have about 2,000 players that I'm responsible for their transition into and out of pro football. I'd love to come sit down and talk to you. And he said, sure. And so I did. So out of that meeting with him, I started, while I was at the NFL, a broadcast camp, because we had a lot of guys said they wanted to become broadcasters, but they didn't know how to do it. And so we started a huge broadcast camp. We started an entrepreneurial program at Harvard, Wharton, Kellogg, and Stanford for guys who said, I want to own businesses. And I said, look, if you're going to own a business, you need to understand what that commitment is. It's not just because you make a ton of money, you can have a business. I got so many funny stories with guys with regard to business. He goes, yeah, I'm going to have a restaurant. Really? Well, you play in Philadelphia. Where are you going to open the restaurant? In Miami. I said, well, who's going to, that's a cash business. He goes, I'll put cameras in there. I'll make sure that I know what's happening. I go, no, man, it doesn't work like that, So I learned an awful lot from Bandura and the principles, I guess you might say. And so I think there's special principles of leadership and character that have kind of moved the idea of a special mentor out of the picture. I still have them. I still do have them, but I look at them differently now.
Thank you, Diane, and thank you, Minnesota State. We'll come back to you here. Let's go to Mount Union, University of Mount Union, if you want to unmute there.
Yep. Mike, it's good to see you. Thank you for speaking today.
Thank you.
I have a question. You've had a lot of experiences as you've gone to in very many venues and cities. When you come up with a situation, do you have a methodology or a way that you evaluate what needs to be done, especially in a leadership situation?
That's a good question. Thank you. A lot of what I do is what I kind of learned from football. Is when I've actually had a lot of training in leadership. So my first recommendation is get the training. It's not like you woke up today and you're a good leader. Sometimes that can happen. You're right in the right situations, but I'm a big advocate and proponent of getting the training because it's made such a difference for me. The best training that I've had when it comes to different situations is first you have to do an analysis and figure out what's going on and what are people thinking, and really have a good understanding of what their understanding is of the problem, because you might come up with a solution to solve a problem that they don't think they have, and so sometimes it's getting everybody to agree that this is the problem. As in the company that I have, I can tell you that I've worked with a lot of people, and they tell me that they don't really know who their customer is. Even as an example of that, the AUA, when they asked me to be the spokesperson for the AUA and try to increase awareness for prostate cancer, I said, well, first of all, who is our customer? Is our customer the people that we're really trying to get to? Is it the public or is it the urologist? They said, well, we want to get to the public. I said, well, who is your customer? And they say, well, our customer is the public. And I said, well, who's paying you a membership fee? He said, well, the urologists are. I said, well, to me, that's your customer. They're paying you. So in your job, if you're not taking care of the people who are paying you, this foundation is going to be closing up here pretty quickly. So a lot of times it's really understanding the problem and then getting everybody to kind of get involved in solving the problem and using their recommendations and talking about their recommendations. It's not me solving a problem and taking the bull by the horn and everything going my way. So hope I answered. If not, dig deeper on your question.
That's good, Mike. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Toma. That's just so you know, Mike, that was the gentleman that helped secure a job for me here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So he's been a valuable asset for me here. Let's go ahead and go to Baldwin Wallace University. Bria.
All right, we're here. Here's the mic. Hi, Mike. My name's Anthony Eder. I'm a senior here at BW. I play baseball as well, sport management major. And I just want to thank you on behalf of everyone here listening to your conversation. It was, I thought, very beneficial for everyone. You talked a lot about your accomplishments, not only in high school, college, but also in the NFL. And I was just wondering, within the next 5 to 10 years, do you have one thing that you want to accomplish, and what would that be and why?
Well, it's kind of funny. Thank you for that question. When I got out of football, one of the things that Jerry mentioned to me is reading off my accomplishments. I worked at Callaway Golf, and I worked for this gentleman named Ely Callaway, and he was, which is a golf company, obviously. He was a cousin of Bobby Jones, who was a famous golfer, and he started a golf company. Well, he was 63 years old when he started this company, and I'm 61, and so I've always wanted to be a successful entrepreneur. I think I'm really good at helping other people, but I've never really come up with a company that is really helping me where I can hire thousands of people or hundreds of people and make a difference in the community by, coming up with something. That's a real goal of mine. And the age I set for myself is 63, because I wanted to do it because Mr. Calloway did it when he was 63. The other thing is, I really left this out. I almost can't believe I did. My goal is to live to be 125. So I have no excuse for not achieving my goal in my lifetime. It's really important to me to have goals, and I try to get people to set these bodacious, outrageous goals, like having a company that I have a couple of thousand people working for me by the time I'm 63. That's pretty outrageous, but if you don't have goals, I don't think life is very interesting. And prostate cancer, what it did for me is got me to set goals with regard to my health. I didn't have a goal to be 125 until then. And with that goal, now I'm more aware of way more, health issues and stuff. And it's played out in my life in a positive way. For a guy who's played football as long as me, my shoulders used to hurt, and I used to think, well, it's because I played football. Well, it wasn't because I played football. My shoulders were hurting because I wasn't doing any exercise. So I started doing yoga, and just, believe it or not, just raising my arms up like this and back down like this. And, for a couple of minutes, I couldn't believe the sweat that I was building up doing that. And so, so I like to do things that are fun. I like to do things that are, that I can be passionate about. And I want to start a company, and I want to be in the health and wellness area. But this morning, and talking to Jerry in anticipation of our meeting, of my talks to you guys, I started thinking maybe I should get in the employment business, because there are so many college athletes, or there's so many, let me just say, high school athletes, because let's be real, not a lot of people are going to get to play college sports. Just not going to happen. But almost anybody can play high school sports. At my son's school, they had 150 kids on the track team in his high school, So it's going to happen. People are going to be playing sports. All parents are going to want their kids doing something outdoors. Here in Southern California, they're surfing, they have volleyball, they got all kinds of stuff. Well, at the end of it, you're going to have to give that up. Well, do you have to really give up sports? Maybe not. Maybe not. And so I started thinking, maybe if I had like an agency, or I started a school K through 12 that I could, focus on these kinds of things. Maybe I could be have the impact that I've always wanted to have in the communities where I live, and athletes and people who love sports could really use them to become, better for their community, or do better things in their community. So anyway, it's a long way to say that I hope to have a company by the time I'm 63 that's putting a lot of people to work.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Haynes, and thank you, Baldwin Wallace, for the great question. Let's go to here, right down the street from the Pro Football Hall of Fame, Malone University here in Canton.
How you doing? My name is Ricardo Bell. I'm a junior here, play football at Malone University. I'd like to thank you again, as everyone else did, for giving us some time and just talk to us about your life and accomplishments, and how to create the same thing in our lives. I just asked you a question of how can a person, or a football player, or just a college sport athlete, connect with a person like you, or someone that is on that level? How can we reach out to you guys for like mentoring or advising, or just talking about how we can better ourselves in our life, and after our sport is over with, and still connected with the sport in a career?
I don't know if there's an easy way to do it, but there's a lot of guys that just say, hey, here's my email address. Call me whenever you want. That's what I do. As a spokesperson for prostate cancer, I do that too. I tell people, hey, look, you have somebody in your family who's not dealing with it well, take my number. If you lose it, I'm in the book, So yeah, I'm a celebrity. Yeah, I could be bothered like crazy. But I feel like maybe that's why God put me on this earth to mentor this young man, or this young woman, or this kid, or help this person through this tragedy, or maybe they're to help me through my tragedy. Who knows? So I just recommend reaching out. That's the best thing you can do. And a lot of people will they'll be surprised and they'll be honored that someone's asking them for help. Here in Southern California, there's a legacy leadership program, and what we have is a lot of high school athletes that go through a big program, and at the end of this program, they get to take a trip to the Pro Football Hall of Fame during the week of the Hall of Fame ceremonies, and they get to sit down and talk to all these Hall of Famers. So you can imagine a guy like you who's a football. What position do you play?
Outside linebacker and DN.
So you get a chance to ask all these Pro Football Hall of Famers that played outside linebacker any question that you want. I crack up because a lot of times you would think they're going to be asking them technical stuff about playing the position, but it's not. It's more about stuff like, how did you know, and what are you going to do next, and stuff like that. So all of the Hall of Famers especially, they are really giving guys. But I would imagine anybody that you would really want to talk to would really want to talk to you as well. So I'd encourage you just to reach out and try to figure out how best to get in contact with them.
And I think we got – oh, sorry.
Well, is there any way I can keep in contact with you? Or
Absolutely.
We'll make that happen. Let's follow. And actually, Mike, just so you know, the person that is sitting to the left of that gentleman is Mark Bankert, who that name Bankert at the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Yes,
That's John Bankert's son. So the former executive director and president of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So Mark, thank you for tuning in here today, and we'll make it happen. So just follow up with me after the program. It looks like we have about 7 minutes left, so I'm gonna try and get to one more question from each group. So we'll go back to Minnesota State. If you want to go ahead with the next question.
Hi, my name is Nicole. The next question that we have is, how do you stay grounded in a culture of being a celebrity, and maybe who are those people that help you stay true to yourself?
Well, for me, it's, I grew up in a Christian community and a Christian home, and my mom would just be the meanest mom in the world if she knew that I wasn't putting God first in my life. And also recognizing that everything that's ever happened to me, it happened because I had help from somebody else. Even if I was running track, somebody gave me a workout and I had to do the work, obviously. In football, obviously, there's, the whole team of people, coaches. There's also people, and the way we looked at it, or I looked at it, is even the guy who kept the field and clean, and who cleaned up the locker room, who washed my jock, and all. All these people played a role. We all have a role. And so, for me, I think it all goes back to the way I was raised.
Great question.
Is there a second half to that question?
No, I think she's happy with your answer.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Minnesota State. Let's go to University of Mount Union again.
Yes, Mike. Background, I've taught 6th grade through graduate school. And all along the line, I've said for years and years, and I'm older than you are, that the key to an education is the parents. So how do you influence the parents? How do you get them to buy into what's needed? A lot of parents do, but there's a lot that don't.
I agree with you 100%. And I've seen it play out a lot of times in a lot of different ways. Even at the NFL, when people are, like when we're dealing with the players, when I first took that job, the feeling of the NFL is these boys need to grow up and become men. They need to separate from their families. I said, and leave them to the Sharks? Are you kidding me? They are still kids. They're still growing up. And they're still developing as people. And so that's the wrong thing to do. I said, we need to educate their parents. We need to care about their parents just as much as we care about them. And so they started doing programs with the NFL mothers and NFL fathers and things like that, and more. I agree with you 100%. I don't know what the real solution is, because even in youth football, I talk to parents, but that parent just moves to someplace else, or they take their kid and put them somewhere else. They may not agree with you, but I think if you don't address the parents and let them know, and a lot of times my experience has been that they are so happy that there's a guy like me there to talk to and helping them understand or helping their child even understand, like say, why school is important. It is a big part of it. You can't just look at the student and you just can't look at the athlete. You have to look at the whole package, and that's mom and dad, and understand to really have a good understanding of their challenges and the best way to kind of help them move forward.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Toma. And we're going to head back to Berea Baldwin-Wallace, if you want to go ahead.
Hi, my name's Juliana Rubin. I'm a freshman here at Baldwin-Wallace, and I'm also on the soccer team. My question for you is, having seen firsthand the transition of players out of the NFL, what do you think is the biggest thing that a player's agent can do to help them to prepare for that transition?
That's a good question. And here's a little bit of difference between players today and players when I played. I played 14 years, and I didn't make $3 million in my whole career. If I was playing today, I would make about $180 million, And so the challenge that these guys have is I never had them. And so, with regard to trying to, live a simple life, it's much harder. It's much easier to do that when I was playing. I can't imagine being 22 years old and got a signing bonus for $10 million. And, I can't even imagine it. So I think that's a question that even I would say I would need training with. I can put myself in the shoes of myself when I was 22 years old. I definitely, first of all, you're going to have every member of your family asking you for money or tickets or something. And they all know how much you made because it's all in the papers. It's public information. They can go on the internet and get it. So if you're a freshman, I'd say the best thing you can do is, and if you're pretty sure you're going to make it to the pros or you're ambitious and that's a real goal of yours, is to talk to the people who are playing right now and say, hey, what is the toughest thing to overcome in your first couple of years of in playing on the pro level? What did you do? How did you deal with it? Did you have your parents that you had to take care of? Did you have all your cousins coming out of the woodwork? Talk to the people who are walking in the shoes that you want to walk in and ask them how would they do it different.
And I think that's great advice for just the words that he said is in any area that you guys are going to go into is talk to the people whose shoes you want to walk in the future. So that can be said about athletics, that can be said about business, that can be said about any endeavor that you want to choose to go into. So I love that quote there, Mike. Let's go back to Malone University. I think we got a minute or two left.
Hello, my name is Phil Fisher. I'm a junior here at Malone University. I'm a sports management major and also play football here. My question to you is, with your insight from having experience both on the field and in offices working for the NFL, what do you believe, if any, would be the next big field that's going to open up in football for sports management majors such as myself who aspire to work in the field of football? What do you think would be the next big field to open up? And what do you think people could do to get into that?
That's a little bit of a tougher question because a lot of it is I don't really know for sure. But I can tell you, like just from being around youth sports, is I think that what should open up is the use of more technology to get good coaching and get good instruction. The USA Football, which is a partnership between the NFL and the Players Association, they try to do their best, but I think most people want to deal with people in their area, local people where they can get together. So anyway, I guess I'm trying to say is I think coaching at the youth level where kids are getting better instruction, you can use technology to do it, and it doesn't cost hardly anything. My son, I pay a guy $500 a month to train my son to be a quarterback. He's a sophomore in high school, and that guy works with like 30 kids. I actually think with technology, he could work with 500 kids. He's just got to, I think that people need to try and find a way to do that. So I think that's, I'll stop there, but because I think that using technology to help educate players that play the game and coaches that coach the game is the next real big breakthrough. And, you know, if you ever spend time on YouTube looking for, like, say, outside linebacker drills, you know, stuff like that, you'll see there's a whole bunch of stuff. Well, I think that that needs to be thought out a little bit more and used in a way that's making the sport better. And I don't think that's happening right now.
And Mike, to close out the program, can you share with them? I think one of the biggest things that we can touch on today as well is what do you think is the one or two most important things that a student can be doing right now to get themselves in the best possible position for future employment? What kind of things, networking, or, you know, what kind of things do you think are the most important things to be doing now to ensure future employment?
Well, one of the things that I would say is get your degree. Let's start with that. And I didn't always feel that way because, like I said, if I was playing today, I was going to make $180 million in my career. Maybe I wouldn't feel that way, but after working in the NFL, I realized that the degree is still an important thing. One, you're not going to be able to stay in the sport forever. Even if you take your $180 million and you're investing in different things, you're going to have a lot of people working for you. You need to know how to manage people. You need to know a lot of different skills. So anyway, that's number one. Number two is use your network. I get a lot of guys who contact me and say, hey, can you help me? I'm looking for a job. And I'd say, I don't even know you. You know, I said, you need to talk to the people that know you. If you talk to people from your college, talk to people that you grew up with, talk to people in your church. That's your network. I'm outside of that network. And I don't think people do that enough or know how to do it. They'll meet somebody on an airplane and go, hey, I met a guy on an airplane. Well, you know, is that networking? I don't think so, you know. But if that guy on the plane that you know, he went to the same school you went to, or you guys have some friends in common or something, that's using a network in a positive way. So anyway, those would be my two things. Get as much education as you can. So that's a college degree. You know, go to leadership seminars. Talk to people who you think that guy's a great leader or she's a great leader. Talk to her, and you're going to find out that she wasn't just born, or he wasn't just born a great leader, or they learned from somebody else. So use those, be inquisitive, be passionate about whatever it is that you want to do, and don't be afraid to take chances to talk to people that you don't know.
And if I can just use for an example today, the gentleman from Malone that asked to be able to reach out to Mike Haynes and stay in touch with him, that's taking advantage of networking opportunities. That you were to have the opportunity today to talk with a Hall of Famer and to be bold enough Mike always says that he's not scared to call anyone. You know, it doesn't hurt. And that student took a leap today and said, hey, you know, can I reach out to you? That's networking. That's what he's established himself now with Mike Haynes. He's got a connection with Mike Haynes through this broadcast today that, who knows, could lead to potential employment for him in the future. So I think that's just an awesome example, and kudos to that student here today at the University of Malone for doing that. So with that being said, I'd just like to have everyone unmute your mics, and if you can join me and give a warm round of applause to Coach